Hello again and welcome back. Welcome to a new class. Yes, welcome to class number 132, okay? One time, several months ago, I accidentally said, for example, welcome to class 131. And Maria started shaking and said, no. And I said, sorry, class 132. Today is class 132, but we're going to review the points in 131 because as usual, we take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, 2 steps forward and 1 step back, little by little, step by step, consolidating every step along the way, slowly but surely, covering every relevant gap that could exist in your English and trying to teach you what is relevant. Remember, not everything in the English language is necessary for effective communication. Effective communication and quality of expression are not necessarily together. You need to be effective when you communicate, not necessarily high quality in the grammar. But if you can put the two together, so much the better. Tanto mejor, so much the better. Okay, remember, most of you are here to improve your English. A few are here to brush up on your English. To brush up on is dar toques finales de mejora. ¿No? Okay? Adecentar el inglés un poquito. That's to brush up on your English. But I don't think most of you are here to brush up on your English. If you think you are, I think you could be mistaken. You could be wrong. You could be mistaken because honestly, I haven't met many people in Spain. Honestly, in 35 years living and teaching here, I haven't met many people in Spain who really need only to brush up on their English. The vast majority, 99.5%, need to really improve their English. Even the people considered advanced have a lot of holes in their English. Lagunas, decís aquí. We say agujeros. They have a lot of holes in their English. Okay, let's go to camera 1 and let's brush up on the list from yesterday. All right, are you ready? Siempre llevo una camiseta debajo. I always wear a t-shirt underneath. It's not true. I'm not wearing a t-shirt underneath. In fact, I never wear a t-shirt underneath. It's not my style. My father, yes. My father always wore. El pasado verbo to wear, war, suena igual que guerra. La guerra, First World War. My father always wore a t-shirt underneath, but I never did. Yes, miento. Yes, I'm wrong. In Oklahoma, in the worst moments of the winter, it was very, very cold sometimes, about 20 degrees below zero and windy. In those cases, I wore more than a t-shirt. I wore a thermal shirt under my normal shirt because sometimes I had to walk to school. My school wasn't very far away. When I was in high school, it was only about 1 kilometer away, so I could walk. But it was cold. So, siempre llevo una camisa debajo. I always wear a t-shirt. Camisa en T is camiseta. I always wear a t-shirt. No de tiras, pero a normal shirt. I always wear a t-shirt underneath. Underneath. Under is debajo de, pero por debajo is underneath. Neath, escrito. I always wear a t-shirt underneath. All right. Él no se presentó para la clase. He didn't show up for the class. De hecho, no se presentó hasta mucho más tarde. He didn't show up until much later. He didn't show up. Show up. He didn't show up until much later. ¿Cómo se supone que he de hacerlo? How am I? Hola Maya, ¿qué tal? How am I supposed to do it? Supposed to do it. Used to do it. Supposed to do it. How am I supposed to do it? ¿Y cómo se supone que se debe hacer? How is it supposed to be done? How is it supposed to be done? How is it supposed to be done? Preferiría jugar al tenis que ir al dentista. I'd rather play. I'd rather play tennis than go to the dentist. I'd rather play tennis than go to the dentist. Casi rima, ¿no? I'd rather play tennis than go to the dentist. I'd rather play herc than go to work. Herc? What's herc? I don't know, but it must be better than work. Okay? I'd rather. I'd rather be a sparrow than a snail. Yes, I would. I'd rather be a hammer than a nail. Yes, I would. If I could, I surely would. It's Paul Simon. El cóndor pasa. I'd rather, preferiría ser martillo que clavo. I'd rather be a hammer than a nail. Yes, I would, etc. I'd rather be a sparrow, un gorrión, que lombriz. No, lombriz no, snail is caracol. I'd rather be a sparrow than a snail. Yes, I would, etc. I'd rather. Ante una opción, I'd rather esto que aquello. I'd rather. I would prefer. I'd rather. I'd rather play tennis than go to the dentist. Pues así soy. Y no lo puedo evitar. Lo siento. That's how I am. That's how I am. That is how I am. That's how I am. Y no lo puedo evitar. Lo siento. I can't help it. It's my personality. It's my character. It's my temperament. That's how I am. I'm sorry, and I can't help it. También no se admite, se usa mucho. That's the way I am. Tal como éramos. The movie with Barbara Streisand and Robert Redford. Memories, la da 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 da. Memories, that's tal como éramos is the way we were. Así éramos, the way we were. And that's the way I am. That's how I am. And I can't help it, I'm sorry. Deja esa decisión a mí. Leave that decision up to me. Leave, leave it up to me. Leave it to me. Leave it up to me. El up es opcional, pero se mete. Leave it up to me. Leave that decision up to me. Leave that decision up to me. Up to me, up to me, up to me. Leave that decision up to me. Leave that decision up to me, up to me. Leave that decision up to me. Aquí la temperatura apenas baja de los 15 grados. Here, the temperature hardly ever drops below 15 degrees. Here the temperature hardly ever falls below 15 degrees. Hardly ever, casi nunca, hardly ever, hardly ever, hardly ever. Almost always. Here the temperature almost always stays above 15 degrees. It hardly ever drops below 15 degrees. Tardé un año en acostumbrarme a la comida. It took me a year to get used to the food, to get used to the food, to get used to the food, to get used to, monasterio de used to get used to the food. All right. I'll be back in just a few minutes to continue.
Hello and welcome to Vaughan Inglés 4.0, the most complete English course on the planet, possibly in the galaxy. It's not confirmed yet, but we're going to get some statistics that prove that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Alberto Alonso. I am your teacher. That's right, you're my student. I'm teaching, you're learning. I hope. That's the way it's supposed to work. Eso es como se debe funcionar. Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce my student who is here to practice and improve her English just like you. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Anna. Hello, Anna. How are you?
I'm great, thank you. How are you?
Okay, not too bad, not too bad. I'm in a good mood.
Okay,
I'm in a good mood.
I'm happy.
Now, I'm going to ask you a few questions. Now, since you've been participating in Vaughan Inglés 4.0, you have to say it like that. Hay que decir Vaughan Inglés 4.0. So, since you've been participating in Vaughan Inglés 4.0, have you seen any improvement? Do you feel like you're improving?
Yes, very much so. Especially on pronunciation.
Pronunciation, which is something you can, even natives, we can always improve our pronunciation. Because when we speak quickly, we don't pronounce correctly. Blah, blah, blah. We just, even in your own native language. So you can always work on pronunciation and enunciation. Very important because you want to be understood, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, Anna, ask me what we're going to look at today.
What are we going to look at today?
Perfect. Okay, we're going to look at a few expressions and a translation list. Okay, we're going to look at an expression that I like a lot. Okay, now, in the morning I wake up and I have a coffee, and after I have my coffee, or a tea actually, I don't drink coffee, what is this?
You brush your teeth.
To brush your teeth. Yeah, that's fine. Great. 5 points. To brush your teeth. That was pretty simple. Well, we have an expression with the word brush in it. Do you know? Maybe you know it. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt, and I'm going to ask you if you know it. We have an expression with the word brush in it.
I don't know.
Okay, all right. No, I'm okay. This is to brush up on.
Oh.
Have you heard this before?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, great. Well, then I'm teaching something. Yeah. Now, if you know it, great. It's good to review it. If you didn't know it, put it in the memory bank. Okay, so to brush up on something. I'm going to give you a sentence in context, and I want you to tell me what it means.
Okay.
Okay? I'm going to try and make it a clear expression here, okay? Let's see. I'm going to Italy in 2 months. I haven't been there in a long time. I should brush up on my Italian.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so she rolled her eyes like, ah, tío, esto es fácil. In context, of course. Tell me, what does it mean to brush up on something?
To get back to it, to start doing it again.
Yeah, to do it again, to darle un
Improve.
repaso. Darle un repaso, algo que a lo mejor antes hacías. To brush up on something. In this course, you're brushing up on your English. Es como si, una forma de asociarlo, es como si tienes un cepillo ahí y estás como intentando quitarle el polvo, right?
Okay.
To brush up on something. Okay, so are you brushing up on your English in this course?
Definitely, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
now you speak Portuguese, right?
Yes.
Ask me if I need to brush up on my Portuguese.
Do you need to brush up on your Portuguese?
Yeah, I do. In fact, I need to start. I know 2 words and I don't even pronounce them correctly. Anna showed me before. Okay, well, let's take a look at the translation list. So, practicar algo o mejorar, dar un repaso, mejorar is to brush up on. To brush up on.
To brush up on.
That's right. Y se dice todo junto así. To brush up. I've got to brush up on my lo que sea. Okay, let's take a look. Él no se presentó hasta mucho más tarde.
He didn't show up until later, a lot later.
A lot later or much later,
Much
too?
later.
So he didn't show up until much later. Can we say another word? That's perfect. Show up is great. We have another word for that. Do you know it?
No, he didn't drop by.
Okay, drop by is more of a short, informal visit. He didn't, okay, we say show up or turn up.
Oh, okay.
It means exactly the same thing. You choose. He didn't show up on time, por ejemplo, and he didn't turn up on time. Okay? ¿Cómo se supone que debe hacerse?
How is it supposed to be done?
Perfect. How is it supposed to be done, right? In the D, we don't pronounce because it always goes with the T. So it sounds more like a T. Supposed to.
Supposed to.
Supposed to. Yeah, la D, it's not supposed to. Pero se junta, it's supposed to. I'm supposed to give you a class. You're supposed to receive the class, right? Okay, let's see. Déjame esa decisión a mí.
Leave that decision to me.
Okay, leave it to me or leave it up to me. You know how we say it's up to you? So leave that decision up to me. Leave that decision up to me. Okay, avísame en cuanto estés listo.
Let me know when you're ready.
Okay,
as soon as
when?
you're.
Or, yeah,
Let me know as soon as you're ready.
let me know as soon as you're ready, right? Okay, good. So far, so good. Okay, no dejes que yo te deprima.
Don't let it put you down. Let you down.
Don't let it get you down.
Get you down, yes.
Okay, don't let it get you down. Or don't let it depress you, we can say. Don't let it get you down. Don't let it depress you. Okay, how do you say adios?
Goodbye.
Oh, okay. Then, so I should say that now. Goodbye, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Welcome back. I'm angry. I'm angry. I'm upset. And when I get angry, I shout. I shout at people. I start shouting at everybody. I shout at Maria, I shout at Jorge, I shout at Seve, I shout at Juanpa, I shout at all the people here, and I start shouting at you if I get angry. To shout at. To shout at. And when I get really angry, I not only shout at people, I start throwing things at people. I start taking pencils and pins, and I start throwing a pen at you, then I throw a pencil at you, then I throw a cup at you, I throw the papers at you. I throw everything at you. La preposición at y la preposición to. Veámoslas. Camera number 1. Okay. Do you need a pen? Do you have a pen? Do you need a pen? Rafa, do you need a pen? No? Yes? Yeah? Well, here. Toma. Here. Okay. I'm throwing the pen to you. I'm not throwing the pen at you because I'm not angry. Tirar con saña is to throw at. All right? To shout at es gritar con saña. To shout to es porque se te olvidó el paraguas aquí. Rafa, Rafa, oye, tu paraguas. I'm not shouting at Rafa because I'm not angry with Rafa. I'm shouting to him. Yeah. I'm pointing at you because the gesture es casi amenazadora. It's almost threatening, the gesture. I'm pointing at you. I'm pointing to the cup. You say I'm pointing at the cup, but to point at is more violent. To point at. To look at. Las miradas queman. Las miradas son fuertes. When a person is looking at you, often it makes you feel uncomfortable. When you notice a person looking at you, por eso la preposición at, looking at you, all right? Looking to you is also used. But to look to somebody is ir a una persona para ayuda o para motivación. If you need help, if you need motivation, if you need a kind pat on the back or on the shoulder, well done, if you need an injection of motivation, you can look to me. You can look to me. You can come to me. You can look to me and I'll help you. All right? Don't look at me like that. I'm here to help. I'm not an opportunist trying to earn money teaching English. I need to earn money, of course, but I'm not an opportunist. So don't look at me like that. If you look at me like that, I'll shout at you and I'll throw things at you and I'll point at you and tell you what I think about you. Okay? At is a violent preposition. To is not. Many times a professor or a teacher is in the classroom explaining something and he points to the blackboard. As you can see, he's pointing at the blackboard. No. To point at the blackboard is like that. To point to the blackboard is, as you can see, on point number 2 on the blackboard, I'm pointing to the blackboard. I'm throwing the pen to you, all right? I'm shouting to you, Manolo, wait, you forgot something, all right? Come back, I'm shouting to you. Now, how often do you shout at people? How often do you point at people? How often do you throw things at people? How often do you look at people straight into the eyes? Now, how often do you shout to somebody to come back? All right? Me, I never shout at people. The last time I shouted at somebody was in 2004, I believe. A long time ago. That was the last time I shouted at somebody. Maybe 2005, I can't remember. A long time ago. The last time I threw something at somebody was my wife. You know, I threw something at her, but not, it wasn't serious, I would say. She said something funny and I took a piece of paper and I threw it at her as a joke. I didn't throw it to her. To throw to is para realmente entregar o dar a alguien algo, tirándolo por el aire, para que le llegue. That's to throw to. But I remember taking a little piece of paper, and I threw it at her, and it hit her on the forehead. And then she threw the napkin at me. La servilleta. She threw the napkin at me. And then I threw a pillow at her. Almohada. I threw a pillow at her, and she threw a pillow at me. Then I threw a big cushion at her, and she threw a cushion at me. Cushion? Cojín. She threw a cushion at me, all right? And then I threw a teddy bear at her. Teddy bear is also de peluche. And she threw an elephant, a type of Yeah, soft elephant de peluche at me. So we were throwing things at each other, all right? But it was for fun. We were laughing, okay? We weren't angry. If we had been angry, we wouldn't have been using pillows, little pieces of paper, or teddy bears. We would have been using plates, all right? Or other objects. Yes, my wife has never thrown a plate at me. Can you have me all right? No. My wife has never thrown a plate at me. She's never thrown anything at me, I think. I don't remember my wife throwing anything at me. And I've never thrown anything at her. I've never shouted at her. Well, it's not true. And she's never shouted at me. Well, it's not true. We've shouted at each other, but very little. My wife and I don't fight. We don't have arguments. We don't have fights. We don't quarrel. All right? We get along. Qué aburrido, ¿no? We get along. We don't shout at each other. We don't fight. We don't throw things at each other. Yeah, we don't point at each other and accuse. J'accuse. Je t'acuso. We don't point at each other and accuse each other of things. No. All right? We don't. All right? But sometimes I shout to her if she forgets something. Sometimes I throw something to her. Toma. All right? Sometimes I point to something in the house. Not point at. Okay? These things, to point. You shouldn't point at people in public, but you can point to people if it's something. This man over here, the man sitting on the table right over there, can you see? I'm pointing to the person. I'm not pointing at. Mama, mira, and you point at the person. He has a big nose. Jimmy, but it's true, look. And he's pointing at the poor man, all right? And then to point to the man, I'd say, darling, hey, look at that man over there. Look at him. Can you see him? I'm pointing to the man. I'm not pointing at the man. All right? So, to shout at, to shout to. To throw at, to throw to. To point at, to point to. Okay? At and to. Interesting. I'll see you in a few minutes. You know, another verb, we use several other verbs, of course, with at, to laugh at somebody, reírse de algo. Y aquí at también es un poco violento, porque cuando te ríes de alguien, realmente es faltarle al respeto un poco, to laugh at somebody. To laugh about somebody, si me cuentan algo sobre María y me río. Ahora, en su cara es to laugh at. Ha ha ha, look at Maria, look. I'm laughing at her. Yeah, she's turning red. To laugh at somebody. And if you really want them to feel bad, you point at them and laugh at them. Yeah, I don't like people laughing at me, making fun of me. Burlarse, reírse de. I don't like people laughing at me or making fun of me, okay? I don't appreciate that type of attitude. Okay, to point at, to look at, to laugh at, to throw at, to shout at. Okay, I'll see you in a few minutes.
Hello and welcome. My name's Richard Brown, that's right, the other Richard, and welcome to the continuation of the most exciting part of this class for today. That's right, we're going to carry on looking at the difference between to shout at someone and to shout to someone. With me in the studio today is David Bonilla, star of stage and screen. That's what we say in English.
Okay.
How's it going?
It's going great, thank you.
You know that expression, star of stage and screen?
No, I didn't, but now I do.
Well, star of stage and screen obviously is an expression we use for when we're talking about well-known actors, as is your case, David.
Okay.
We say literally,
kind of, yes.
Estrella de escenario y de pantalla.
Y de pantalla.
Literalmente. Okay, a nice little expression. Star of stage and screen. So with my star of stage and screen, we're going to carry on looking at the difference between shouting to someone and shouting at. In Spanish, as Richard will already have told you, you don't really differentiate between gritarle a alguien cabreado y gritarle a alguien para llamarle atención, no? You simply say gritarle a alguien.
Yes.
In English, when you're angry, we shout at someone, okay? At, this preposition here, is implicit, the idea of anger within that preposition. I'm shouting at you because I'm angry. Okay, David?
Yeah.
Because you haven't done your homework, for example. I'm going to shout at all of you at home if you don't do your online exercises every day. I will shout at you, okay? Bien. ¿Está claro, no?
Yes.
Bien. Okay, let's go with some examples. I'll give you an example in Spanish and then we'll switch to lots of English questions.
Great.
Vi a mi padre en la calle y le grité porque no me oía. ¿Qué sería, con to o con at?
It would be with two.
Muy bien, good. Why? Because we're simply
Yes, to
calling
call
his attention. Okay?
Okay.
In Spanish, vi a mi padre en la calle y le grité porque no me oía. Ahora, en inglés.
I saw my father in the street and I shouted.
Shouted. Bien,
And I
okay.
shouted.
Very important. The verb to shout ends in a T. And therefore, as it's regular, the pronunciation of the past is shouted. Okay, we pronounce the E como si fuese una I latina. Okay? Shouted, not shouted. Shouted. Okay? Bien, entonces,
I saw my father in the street and I shouted him
I shouted.
to him.
Where's the
I shouted-
preposition, David? I will
shouted-
shout at you if you don't get it right.
Okay. I saw my father in the street and I shouted to him because he couldn't hear me.
Excellent. I saw my father in the street and I shouted to him. Empleamos la preposición to. Why? Because we're simply trying to get their attention. Okay? I shouted to him because he couldn't hear me. Good. Mi jefe me gritó porque llegué tarde.
My boss shouted at me.
Okay, shouted.
Shouted.
Mejor.
My boss shouted at me because
Good.
I was late.
Excellent. Did you see the way David linked the past with the preposition there? It was excellent. He shouted at, shouted at, shouted at. This is something you must practice a lot to improve your fluency, okay? He shouted at me, I shouted at him, we shouted at them.
Okay.
Perfect, good. Okay, now there's another verb where we make a similar distinction between when we use it in conjunction with the preposition to and when we use it in conjunction with the preposition at. And that is the verb to throw. ¿Qué significa?
Tirar.
Exactly.
Arrojar.
Arrojar, tirar. Good, exactly. Now, when we're throwing something to someone, simply, in order to pass this object, for example, the pen, to David through the air, a través del aire, okay, we throw it to him. Okay, David, I'm throwing the pen to you. What am I doing?
You are throwing the pen to me.
Okay, catch. Here we go. Bien, now you can throw the pen back to me. What are you doing?
I'm throwing the pen back to you.
Good, excellent. He's throwing it back to me. He's throwing it to me, okay? Now, if I threw it to David, but with the intention of hurting him or causing him some bodily harm significa como daño corporal,
Yes.
¿hemos dicho? ¿Sí?
Yes, sí.
Okay. Bodily harm, daños corporales, no sé. Bien. I want to hurt him, quiero hacerle daño, I throw the pen at him, okay? David, I'm going to throw the pen at you.
No, please.
Okay, duck, duck. ¿Qué significa duck? Es muy importante en esta clase.
Agáchate, ¿no?
Eso es, exactamente. Duck, que es nuestra palabra para pato, okay? We use it to mean duck, bird, but also it's a verb. To duck means agáchate, la cabeza, sobre todo, okay? So I throw it at you and he ducks. No, es broma.
Okay.
Okay?
You never know.
You never know with me. So I can throw the pen at you, duck, okay? Agacharos, okay? Duck. Bien, D-U-C-K, pero se dice duck, bajando la mandíbula. Good, so if I threw a pen at you, would you be angry?
Yes, I would.
If I threw a pen at you, David, would you shout at me?
Yes, I would probably shout at you.
Good, you wouldn't shout to me, you would shout at me if I
Yes.
threw a pen at you. Dime la frase entera.
If you threw a pen at me, I would shout at you.
Okay, if I threw a pen at you,
If you
you said it perfectly.
Okay.
Another example. If I threw a pen at you, David, okay, would you throw it back at me?
Yes, if you threw a pen at me, I would throw it back at you.
At you, muy bien. If I threw a pen at David, he would throw it back at me. So I want to hurt him, he wants to hurt me. This is going to be la guerra de
Do
los
you say
bolis. The war of the pens.
I by I?
¿Cómo?
No, okay. In the Bible, I Eye by eye,
Bien.
tooth by tooth.
Sí, sí. An eye for an eye.
Ah, okay.
An eye for an eye. Ojo por ojo, yeah.
Yes.
An eye for an eye.
Okay.
A tooth for a tooth. Tooth siendo el singular, ¿no? No decimos teeth. A tooth for a tooth. An eye for an eye. Good. So I throw the pen at David, and he throws it back at me. If I threw the pen at you at home, would you throw it back at me? Would you? You wouldn't dare. Bueno, sería difícil, ¿no?
Yes.
La pantalla. Tengo ventaja. Excellent. Good. Let's go to another verb, to laugh very quickly.
Okay.
If I laughed at you, would you be angry with me?
Yes.
Good. When we laugh at someone, again, with this preposition at, it's generally used within the context of these three verbs with a connotation of hurting or harming someone, either physically or morally. Okay, so if I were to laugh at David, me estoy riendo de ti.
Sí, te estás riendo de mí.
Exactly. I'm not laughing with him, I'm laughing at him. So if I laughed at you, David, would you get angry?
Yes. If you laughed at me, I would be angry.
Okay, if I laughed at you, would you shout at me?
No, come on, it's too much. No,
Well, poco.
if you laughed at me...
Bueno, for the class, for the sake of the class.
Okay.
Bien.
If you laughed at me, I would shout at you.
Okay, if I laughed at him, he would shout at me.
Yes.
Ask me if you shouted at me, if I would throw a pen at you.
If I shouted at you, would you throw a pen at me?
Of course I would. Okay, see you later, guys. Ciao.
Okay, this English course is not very expensive. It doesn't cost too much. It really doesn't cost too much, in my opinion. The people who are official students, I don't remember how much it costs, but it's just a little bit more, I think, than €1 an hour of class, or even a little bit less. I don't remember how much it costs, but it doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It doesn't cost an arm and a leg, okay? Let's go to camera number 1. To cost an arm and a leg, costar un brazo y una pierna. En Spanish son los ojos, creo, ¿no? Te va a costar un ojo de la cara. Como si no las hubiera ojos no en la cara. Te va a costar un ojo de la cara. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg. So debemos personalizar. Cost me, cost you, cost him, cost her, cost them, cost us. It cost me an arm and a leg. Yeah, I remember. Every time I go to the United Kingdom, everything costs a fortune. Everything in the United Kingdom costs an arm and a leg. Yeah, costs a lot. It's a rip-off. Yeah, un timo nacional. Yeah, you go there. If you want to buy a car, you can buy it in Spain, and in the United Kingdom, it's 20 or 30% more expensive. It costs an arm and a leg. It costs a fortune. My God. They'll take you to the cleaners. Te llevarán a la lavandería y te limpiarán. A la tintorería. Yes, they'll clean you, man. They'll take you to the cleaners. Because it costs an arm and a leg. If you want to buy a house, it costs an arm and a leg. If you want to rent an apartment in London, forget it. You need to go out 50 kilometers to find a rent that you can afford. To find a rent that you can afford. Because if you go inside the ring road, the no sé qué, it costs an arm and a leg. To rent a flat costs an arm and a leg. To buy tickets for the underground, you know, the tube, the famous London tube, it's horrible. You go down there, just for one important trip, it can cost you £8 or something, which is about, I don't know, about 10 euros. It really costs an arm and a leg. You know, in Madrid and in Barcelona, I think it's €1. And you can go anywhere. In the London tube, it costs 10 euros. It's just unbelievably expensive. It costs an arm and a leg to move around in London. And the bus too, it costs an arm and a leg. I think people spend maybe 500 euros or 1,000 or 2,000 euros a year only for an annual pass to use the underground. It costs an arm and a leg. Then you want to go to a decent restaurant in London, my God. It costs triple what it costs here. Everything's expensive. It costs an arm and a leg. It costs an arm and a leg to eat out. And if you want to buy cigarettes, I don't smoke, but I know some people who do, and a pack of cigarettes, a pack of 20 cigarettes, in the United Kingdom costs something like €8. It's unbelievable. It costs an arm and a leg to buy anything, to buy cigarettes in the UK. And some people in the UK come down to Malaga, to Marbella, or to Fado in Portugal, and they buy 50 cartons of cigarettes at the prices here, and they fly back. And they sell the cigarettes. And they make enough money to finance the trip down and back, staying in a hotel in Fado or Malaga or Marbella, and they make a lot of money because the taxes on tobacco in the United Kingdom are so high that to smoke one cigarette costs an arm and a leg. You know, if you have 20 cigarettes, and each one, and the pack costs 10 euros, because it costs 8 libras, 10 euros. My God, each cigarette is half a euro. So you should enjoy that cigarette. You're spending half a euro to smoke a cigarette. But of course, people spend 2 euros to drink a can of Coke or Pepsi. They spend 2 euros. And usually they drink it as fast sometimes as smoking a cigarette. So really, I don't know. Because I don't smoke, I really can't judge. But in my opinion, it costs an arm and a leg just to eat a hamburger. You can go to McDonald's or Burger King or Wendy's in London, it costs an arm and a leg. Unbelievable. You can go to McDonald's and it costs you, I don't know, 20 euros, just you. Okay, he says, my God, this is expensive. It costs an arm and a leg. It's very expensive. The prices are exorbitant. In Spanish, you say exorbitante, desorbitados. We say exorbitant, no desorbitados, out of orbit, no. But the prices are exorbitant. The prices are very high, yeah. Certain things cost a fortune. Certain things cost an arm and a leg. But sometimes when you approach the cost or the price of things, you need to take into consider other elements. What do you get in return? What do you get in return? For example, we have in our company a master's program for English. Some people think it costs an arm and a leg. It costs around 18,000 euros. It's a lot. It's an important amount of money. There's no doubt about it. And it costs 10 months of your life. So it's an important sacrifice. 10 months of your life plus 18,000 euros. Now, if you want to do an MBA, a Master in Business Administration, it costs at least 10 months of your life and perhaps 40 or 50,000 euros, much more. However, after you finish our Masters, you speak English perfectly for the professional world. You don't have any problems anymore for the rest of your life. So, what do you get in return? When people tell me that my products are expensive, I say, well, what do you want? Do you want to take classes or do you want to learn? What are you buying? English classes or to learn English? Well, to learn English, then my prices are cheap. It doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It's a very, very good investment because knowledge of the English language brings a lot more salary to you in the future. In fact, certain experts in human resources management state that having a good level of English is worth 800,000 euros over a 35-year career. You earn 800,000 euros more than a person in equivalent positions who doesn't know English, or a person who starts with you at the same starting line, línea salida, at the same starting line. You know English well, and this person has an intermediate level. At the end, you have earned 800,000 euros more than your colleague. So, don't tell me that learning English costs an arm and a leg, because it doesn't. It's simply an investment. It's not a cost. All right, so don't criticize the price. Don't say, oh, Richard, your prices are exorbitant. It costs a fortune. It costs an arm and a leg. Because in my opinion, it doesn't. It doesn't cost anything. Al contrario, it brings you more money. Okay, it's typical. Investments Nothing risked, nada arriesgado, nada ganado. Nothing risked, nothing gained. All right. I'll see you in a few minutes.
Hello and welcome to Vaughan Inglés 4.0. My name is Alberto Alonso and I'm your teacher. And you have a fellow student. That's right, a fellow student means another student among you, entre vosotros. You have a fellow student who's going to help you today. So I want you to repeat what he says. Well, not the mistakes. When he says things correctly, I want you to repeat after him and repeat after me. En voz alta. How do we say that? Aloud or out loud. Okay, great. Well, let me introduce my student for today. He's been on the radio show, so we're not strangers. We've met before. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Juan to the show. Hello, Juan. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you doing, Alberto?
Okay, not too bad, not too bad. Now, let me ask you this. Do you notice that I'm fine is the number one answer to that question?
Yes, I know.
It's the number one answer.
But I repeat it anyway.
Why not? If it works, we say in English, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Do you say something similar in Spanish? Si no está roto, no lo arreglas, o hay una frase parecida?
I don't know. I have to think about it.
Okay, think about it and get back to me.
Okay, I'll tell you.
Okay, cool. So if it's not broken, don't fix it. Okay, well, Juan, ask me what we're going to look at today.
What are we going to look at today?
Okay, well, we're going to look at an expression, a very common expression. Now, when something is expensive, hay muchas palabras. We can say expensive. What is another word for expensive?
No, I don't know.
Costly. Costly. It's another way. This is very costly. Well, we're going to look at an expression that's the equivalent of it costs an egg. Cuesta un huevo. That's what you say in Spanish,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But we don't say that in English. We don't say cuesta un huevo. We don't say it costs an egg. It sounds kind of strange, actually. But we say, what do we say? Do you know this expression?
No, I don't know.
It costs an arm and a leg. Okay, we're going to look at that. But first, we're going to look at some vocabulary. Okay, so keep that in your mind. Cuesta un huevo, it costs an arm and a leg. Pretty funny, right? Nice expression. Okay, well, let's take a look at the vocabulary, and then we're going to go into an arm and a leg. Okay, are you ready?
I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. At home, are you ready? I hope so. These are tough ones. Estas son difíciles. I didn't know them in Spanish. Okay, here we go. Are you ready? Ilimitado. Ilimitado.
Unlimited.
Unlimited. Nice pronunciation. Repeat it for the people at home.
Unlimited.
Unlimited. Unlimited. Okay? This course has unlimited possibilities. Okay. Number 2. Sudoroso. Right now, me, from the studio lights, I am...
Sweating. Sweaty.
Okay, sweating es el verbo. I'm sweating. Estoy sudando. Cuidado, mucha gente dice sweet. Sweet es dulce. Okay? El sudor, me imagino que no es dulce. It's, how do you say salado?
Salty.
Yeah, it's salty. Usually sweaty. Like, that's disgusting. Qué asco. Okay, so sudoroso is?
Sweaty.
Sweaty. Now, when do you usually get sweaty?
When you do sports, when you go jogging or whatever sports you may do.
Sure. If you go to the gym, how do you say hacer ejercicios?
To do sports.
To do sports, we say do exercise or to work out. Have you heard this one before?
No.
Okay, this is a great one. Yeah, hacer ejercicios to work out. So when you work out, si te acuerdas de esta frase, tienes las dos palabras. When you work out, you get sweaty. You get really sweaty. Okay, let's take a look at number 3, pantano, ciénaga.
Swamp.
Swamp. That's right, a swamp. A swamp is usually very, how do you say, un sitio que tiene mucho barro.
I don't know, but it's sticky.
Muddy, we would say.
Okay.
Es la palabra barro, es mud, le añadimos una D y una Y. Muddy.
Okay, muddy.
Hay un cantante, Muddy Waters. Aguas pantanos con mucho barro. Okay, so we say swamp, and you said before, what famous character lives in a swamp?
Shrek.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Richard Brown. No, I'm joking. Okay, Shrek lives in a swamp. That's right. Okay. Or as my friends in Almeria call him, El Re.
El Re. Yeah.
Yeah. My friend Manu in Andalucía, and he said, ¿Te gusta el Re? And I said, excuse me? He goes, El Re? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And he said, El verde este. I'm like, Shrek? So remember, tenemos que pronunciar toda la palabra. El Re, I won't understand you, but Shrek lives in a
swamp.
Lives in a swamp, that's right. He lives in a swamp next to Richard Brown. They live together in the swamp. All right, he's going to kill me if he sees this episode. Okay, here we go. The next one. Number 4, insatisfactorio.
Unsatisfactory.
Very good. Unsatisfactory. The results are unsatisfactory. What is the opposite?
Satisfactory.
That's pretty easy, right? How do you say está chupado? Not it sucked.
It-
We don't say it, right? Okay.
I don't know. It's very easy.
It's a piece of cake.
Okay.
Es un trozo de, es pan comido. It's a piece of cake. Or we say it's a walk in the park. I'm giving you a lot of expressions.
Yeah.
Remember these.
I have to
here,
write them down
okay?
afterwards.
You have to write them down. That's right. Or the good thing is to repeat them. So how do we say it? How do we say está chupado?
To have a walk in the park.
It's a walk in the park. Ah, that's a walk in the park. Not to have, but we didn't.
It's a walk in
It's
the
a
park.
walk in the park. And another way?
It's a piece of cake.
Ah, it's a piece of cake. That's a piece of cake. Okay, and the last one, a perfect adjective to describe me, hablador, alguien que habla mucho.
Talkative.
Talkative, talkative. Now that's a very polite way to say it. Ahora, si queremos ponerle un poco de insulto detrás, chatterbox. Have you heard this one?
That's charlatan, isn't it?
It's a non-diplomatic way to say someone who talks a lot. A chatterbox. Okay? Now, but some people talk a lot, and they say, I think you say the pico de oro. How do you say someone who can talk about anything to anyone at any time?
I don't know, a gold mouth guy?
No, this is the Spanish
tried.
pico de oro. Me gusta, pero no. We say the gift of gab. To have, oh man, he has the gift of gab. Ese puede hablar horas sobre cualquier cosa con cualquier persona. To have the gift of gab. It's a good one too. I'm giving you
I
some
have to write
good,
all this down.
during the break, I want you guys to write them down, but more importantly, to say them aloud. Okay, pico de oro?
I don't know.
To have the gift. El don.
To have the gift
Of gab.
Of gab.
Gab es un sinónimo para hablar.
How do you spell that? J-A-B?
No, it's G-A-B.
Okay.
Gab. It's gab. Okay, because jab es un puñetazo como rápido
Okay.
así. Okay. See, more vocabulary. You're getting all this? I hope it's sinking in. Okay.
I'm
So
trying
those
to.
are your words there. Those are your words for today. And not only the 5 vocabulary words, but a few expressions. Now, how do you say el coche me costó un huevo?
The car cost me an arm and a leg.
Yeah, the car cost me an arm and a leg. The car. Now let me ask you about that watch. Did that watch cost you an arm and a leg?
Well, yes, indeed.
Okay, pero dame la frase así el hecho es repetirlo.
Yes, the watch cost me an arm and a leg.
The watch cost me an arm and a leg. Ask me if diamonds cost an arm and a leg.
Do diamonds cost an arm and a leg?
I think so. I've never bought any diamonds, but they do, I think. Now let me ask you this. Did your wife's Christmas present cost an arm and a leg?
No, my wife's Christmas present hopefully didn't cost me an arm and a leg.
Or thankfully, right? Hopefully, porque hopefully es para el futuro. Hopefully they'll come. Esto es un error muy común. We say thankfully. Thankfully es como gracias a Dios.
Okay.
Right. So is that what you meant?
Yes, that's what I meant.
Okay. It's a common mistake because hopefully tendría que ser para un evento o un acontecimiento en el futuro. Okay. Ask me if this course costs an arm and a leg.
Does this course cost an arm and a leg?
No, this course doesn't cost an arm and a leg. It's very affordable. Costeable. Okay. Keep studying. We'll see you next time. Ciao.
All right. Class 132. Okay, we've just finished it. Congratulations on finishing another class. But we still have a lot of classes ahead of us. We still have a long way to go. We haven't finished yet. Don't count your chickens before they hatch. Yes, because we have a lot of work to do. And remember that I would also recommend that if you have a chance, that you watch the intermediate programs as well. Because we cover things sometimes I consider even richer than some of the things we see here. All right, so I imagine if you dip back into the intermediate level and watch those programs too, that you will profit from it and learn something new or consolidate something old or refresh your memory on something or brush up on certain aspects of the intermediate level of the language that you thought you know, but that you have forgotten. Try it. I think it's worthwhile.